That's the question we ask ourselves here at Stories That Mend, and tonight's story proves that sometimes, what you think is a devastating end is actually a life-changing beginning. If you believe in the power of empathy and unexpected connection, pause right now, hit the like button, and subscribe so you don't miss another narrative about how simple kindness can heal the world. Now, let's talk about Leo in a blind date that never was, on the coldest night of the year. Leo checked his watch for the 10th time. It was 10:17 p.m., and the Blue Door Bistro had been empty for an hour, save for the solitary glow of the bartender's light and the clinking ice in his own untouched water glass. Outside, the city of Boston was paralyzed by a sudden, brutal snowstorm, the wind whipping the flakes into stinging horizontal sheets. He had been waiting since 7 for Amelia, his blind date set up by a well-meaning, and now slightly hated, mutual friend. He was a man built on routine, spreadsheets, early mornings, and quiet evenings. Loneliness, for Leo, wasn't a sharp pain but a persistent, low-grade hum, and tonight he'd tried to silence it. He'd dressed well, practiced a few opening lines, and allowed himself a sliver of genuine, nervous hope. Now, that hope was frozen over, turning into dull embarrassment. He felt foolish, not just for waiting, but for expecting someone to break through the storm for him. At 10:30 p.m., the manager, David, gave him the polite, universal, "We're closing" look. Leo pulled out his phone, finally ready to admit defeat. Just as he was putting on his coat, his phone buzzed. It wasn't Amelia, but the mutual friend. "Leo, I am so sorry. Amelia's car died hours ago and she didn't have service until now. She's terribly sorry, says she's ghosting you, but in the most justified way possible. Go home, man." A wave of relief mixed with profound disappointment washed over him. He was free, but still utterly alone. He paid his bill, tipping the bartender generously, and stepped out into the frigid air. The wind immediately attacked his lungs, and he hunched his shoulders, pulling his scarf higher. He had parked around the back of the building where the staff entrance and dumpsters were located, a darker, less trafficked route. As he rounded the corner, Leo's brisk stride faltered. He heard a sound that didn't belong to the wind, a small, ragged cough, quickly muffled. Beside the massive, shadowed bulk of a recycling bin, huddled against the brick wall that offered a meager windbreak, was a figure. It was a young woman, wrapped in a thin, threadbare coat, her face pale. She was desperately clutching a small child, a boy, maybe 5 or 6, who was pressed against her chest, attempting to burrow into her warmth. Both were shaking violently, not just from the cold, but from sheer exhaustion. Their clothes were damp, covered in a thin layer of crystalline snow. Leo didn't hesitate. All thought of his failed date, the cold, or the long drive home vanished. "Hey," he called out, trying to keep his voice steady and non-threatening. "Are you okay? You need to come inside." The woman's head snapped up. Her eyes, wide with fear and a hint of shame, met his. "No, sir, we're fine. We're just waiting for someone." Her voice was thin, almost lost in the wind. She tightened her grip on the boy, Finn, who whimpered softly. Leo saw the lie in her eyes, the desperate effort to preserve a shred of dignity. He saw the way her lips were turning blue. "Ma'am, it's 20 degrees outside. That boy is freezing. My name is Leo. The restaurant is closed, but I just came from inside. I'm going to take you inside right now to get warm. Please, it's not safe out here." He moved slowly, deliberately non-threateningly, opening the back staff door with the key. Card the bartender had given him for his parking pass. The rush of warm, kitchen air felt like a physical embrace. "Clara," she whispered, her voice cracking. "My name is Clara, and this is Finn." Getting them inside was a victory, but the battle wasn't over. Clara slumped onto a stainless steel prep table bench, utterly depleted, while Finn immediately began shivering uncontrollably. Leo quickly found a stack of clean, unused tablecloths, wrapping Finn in the soft linen like a tiny, frozen mummy. He located the leftover chicken stock simmering on a low burner and poured 2 mugs full, spiking Finn's with a little sugar from the coffee station. As the heat slowly leached the cold from their bones, Clara began to cry, silent tears tracking clean lines down the grime on her cheeks. "I am so sorry," she choked out. "I didn't want anyone to see us. The car broke down 5 miles out of the city. We walked until we found shelter, but the park benches were impossible. We had no money for the bus. This wall was the only place out of the wind." Leo simply sat beside her, not asking questions, not offering platitudes, just handing her another mug of soup. The quiet, empty bistro suddenly felt like the most intimate, necessary space in the world. He realized this encounter, this accidental act of radical empathy, was the moment his life truly began that night. As the night wore on, the full weight of Clara's story emerged. She was a single mother who had just lost her job waiting tables when her daycare funding ran out. She had been driving to a relative's house 3 states away, a final, desperate attempt to reset their lives, when the old car finally quit. Everything she owned was crammed into the trunk. "I kept telling Finn it was an adventure," she whispered, stroking her son's hair as he finally drifted into a deep, safe sleep on the tablecloth nest. "I promised him snow globes and hot chocolate. I never promised him this." Leo listened, truly listened, perhaps for the first time in years. His own loneliness, the one he'd hoped a blind date would fix, was superficial compared to the profound, existential isolation Clara was facing. He realized his disappointment in being ghosted was an insult to the reality of real struggle. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," Leo admitted softly, a confession he hadn't planned to make. "I was living in my car for a while after college. My parents cut me off, and I made some bad choices. It was winter, too. I got lucky. A guy gave me a job washing dishes, no questions asked. It changed everything." This shared vulnerability, not pity, but genuine, reciprocal human recognition, was the connection he'd been searching for all night. By 5 a.m., the first week light of dawn was filtering through the high bistro windows. The storm had passed, leaving the city pristine and silent. David, the manager, came in early and found Leo sitting next to Clara and Finn, who were still fast asleep. David, seeing the exhaustion on Leo's face and the tender tableau, didn't chastise him. He quietly started the coffee machine. Leo had made a decision. He couldn't just leave them with a cup of coffee and a kind word. "Clara," he said gently when she woke up, "I called a tow company. They're taking your car to a mechanic I trust, just to assess the damage. Don't worry about the cost right now. But you and Finn need a warm, safe place today, not just a day, but a fresh start." He pulled out his phone. He didn't have a spare room, but he had resources. He called a local community shelter he volunteered at remotely. He called a friend who owned a small catering company, explaining Clara's background. He didn't offer her a date, he offered her a bridge. The story of the blind date that never happened quickly became legendary among the bistro staff. But for Leo and Clara, it became the foundation of something real. Leo didn't become a savior, he became an anchor. He secured a 2-week stay for Clara and Finn in a secure housing initiative, helped her polish her resume, and the catering friend gave Clara a chance, starting her in a prep kitchen position with decent hours and a commitment to helping her find stable childcare. Weeks later, the cold was gone, and the city was bustling again. Leo and Clara were sitting at a small, sunlit cafe. They were discussing Finn's art project, not their traumatic first meeting. That night, Clara said, stirring her coffee, "I thought I was at the very end. The shame of being seen was almost worse than the cold. But you didn't look at me with judgment, Leo. You looked at me like I was a human being who just needed a hand up." Leo smiled, a quiet, profound expression. "I waited all night for a date," he replied, "and what I found was something much better. I found a reason to stop focusing on what I was missing and start focusing on what I could give." That night, I was the one who was truly found. They didn't rush into a relationship. They built a friendship first, slowly, deliberately, anchored in a moment of pure, selfless compassion. But they both knew, deep down, that the freezing, failed blind date was the true start of their journey together, a journey that proved that love, in its purest form, often arrives disguised as unexpected kindness on the darkest night. The inspiring message: you never know who is shivering just outside your door. Sometimes, the relationship you truly need, the relationship with your own humanity, or perhaps even a deeper bond with another soul, is found when you abandon your expectations and simply choose to be warm.